In this video I'm going to go over how to fly an NDB approach using the working title CJ4. So for this example we're going to be flying the NDB approach for runway 09 at North Bighorn County. And just to quickly brief this approach, our ADF frequency is going to be 257. We don't have to worry about any alternate minimums. Here's our missed approach briefing. And for the approach itself, we'll be coming in from the Cody VOR. And we're going to fly directly over the Cowley NDB. And we'll fly out for about 30 seconds just to give us room to turn around. So we'll do a right turn and try to establish ourselves on a 260 course to the Cowley NDB. Once we cross the NDB, heading west, we'll start a timer. And we'll fly it 1.5 minutes out on this 260 course. I believe the standard is 3 minutes, but because of the high approach speed in the CJ4, we'd be like 15 miles away from the airfield by the time we start the procedure turn. And as you can see by the note here, we have to be within 10 miles of the airfield during the entire approach. So we'll fly at about 1.5 minutes. That'll put us around like 6 miles from the airfield, at which point we'll start a left turn to 215 degrees and reset our timer. So once we've flown for 1 minute on this outbound portion of the procedure turn, we'll begin a right turn to 035 degrees, and we'll set up for a 45 degree intercept to this final approach course of 080 degrees. Once we're established on this final approach course, we can begin configuring the plane for landing, so dropping flaps and gear as necessary. We can also begin descending to our MDA. The CJ4 is going to be category B, so if we're flying straight in for runway 9, it's going to be 5,200 feet, which is a 1,200 foot AGL, so it's a pretty high minimum. But if the winds are coming out of the west today, which I think they are, we can also do the circling approach for runway 27, which also has the same minimums, so we'll set that up in the plane. Some final things to note here is that the approach does not specify any altitude we have to be at before the procedure turn. We just have to be above 6,400 feet. And final thing I wanted to point out is just that the final approach course is not actually aligned to the runway itself. So if we get visual on the runway during final approach, we should expect to see that we're not perfectly aligned with runway 09. So let's go ahead and fly this approach. Okay, here we are coming up to the Cody VOR. So let's go ahead and start preparing for this approach. First thing we'll do is go down to Departures Arrivals, go to Arrivals, and the winds have been coming out of the northwest today, so we'll expect a circle to land on runway 27. And this is a VFR runway, so we'll get a runway extension. You can change it if you want. We'll just leave it at 5 for this example. Hit execute. Go back to the legs page, and we'll just clear the discontinuity, like so. Now we can go to Performance, Approach, and we can start entering our approach information. So according to the METAR, we have wind at 310, 8 knots, temperature -17, and the altimeter is 2977. We'll expect wet runway conditions. Can go next. Hit send, so we have a VREF of 105 and the approach of 112. So that's good. Next we're going to actually tune our ADF, and to do that we'll go down to the tune page, and in the bottom left we have this ADF down here. If you go to the next page, there's these other 2 ADF frequencies, but this page isn't actually operational right now, so we'll do everything on the first page here. And if we look at the chart, our NDB frequency is 257. I'll go ahead and enter that in there. And in order to see the ADF needles, we have to bring them up on the PFD and MFD. And that is done with the bearing source. So if we go to PFD menu, scroll down to bearing source, select, we'll scroll down to ADF1, push to select, and I'll exit out of that. And we can now see we have this ADF1 and 257, which is the frequency. And NDBs are fairly short range nav aids, so we're going to have to get a bit closer for the plane to actually pick it up and bring the needles up onto the displays. In real life, you would also want to listen to the Morse code identifier of the NDB just to verify that you are tuned to the correct one. However, I don't think that's actually modeled in the game, so we're just going to have to trust that we have the right right NDB. And last thing here before our top of descent, go ahead and turn VNav on. We'll bring our altitude preselector down to 7,000 feet. If we remember from the approach brief, we just have to be above 6,400 feet before we are inbound on the final approach course. So we'll just select 7,000 for now. And we can also put our MDA into the refs page. So select refs menu, scroll down to Barrow, and we'll spin this up to 5,200 feet. There we go. Okay, and we are now prepared for the approach. And come back once I have something else to report on. Okay, and here we are passing through 18,000 feet. So I'll go ahead, take the altimeter out of standard and reset it for 2977. Do the same with the standby altimeter. There we go. You can also turn on the beacon and nav lights. Throw the logo light on as well. Leave the strobes off for now, just because we're in this heavy IFR at the moment. And now we can also see we're within range of the NDB, so we have these blue needles, and what we can do is now start heading direct to the Cowley NDB station. So we'll go into heading mode. And I will also put the plane into vertical speed and turn VNav off, because we're not following a FMS route anymore. We don't need VNav running. Okay, so now we're approaching the Cowley NDB. If you look in the legs page, I actually deleted everything except the runway. That's just so we can get this GPS distance to the airfield. That'll just help us double check that we're staying within 10 miles of the airfield. And actually, I can go to plan view. There we go. And now you can see, as long as we stay within this 10 nautical mile ring, we should be good for the approach. Okay, so we're just about to cross the NDB station. I will also switch my format over to the full compass rose, and it'll make it a lot easier to fly this NDB approach. I'll keep slowing it down to about 160 knots. Okay, we can see the ADF needles swinging around. So in about 30 or 40 seconds, start the timer. We'll make our right turn and then intercept a 260 degree inbound course to the NDB station. Okay, that's about 40 seconds, so we'll start a right turn back to the Cowley NDB. Okay, and now we're going to use the heading bug to push the needle to 260 degrees. Since we're on an inbound course. So we're a little bit to the right of 260. or sorry, we're a little bit to the left, so we're going to use the heading bug to go right and push the needle to the left. You can see it's now going back to 260, so we can start bringing the heading back. We'll put it at about 261 just to compensate for this right crosswind. And then we are holding 160 knots now. And we're about to pass over the NDB, so we're just going to ignore the ADF needles for now. Okay, needles are swinging around. We'll reset our timer now. We'll fly out for 1.5 minutes on a 260 degree course. And because we're flying outbound now, we're going to use the heading bug to pull the tail to 260, which right now we're pretty much spot on. Can maybe come a little bit to the left. If I zoom in here, you can see we've got west 265, and now we're just dead on 260. And I'll probably just move the heading bug about 1 or 2 degrees to the right just to compensate for this wind, but it's not too bad, so shouldn't have to do too much compensation. Okay, we're just past 1 minute. You can see we're now 3 miles away from the airfield. Still holding our 260 outbound course. Okay, and now there's 1.5 minutes. We'll turn right to 215 degrees. And we'll reset our timer again. We'll fly this leg for 1 minute. And at this point we still have to be above 6,400 feet. There's 30 seconds. We're now just about 6.5 miles away from the airfield. Still within that 10 nautical mile ring. Okay, 59, 60. Start our right 180 degree turn to 035 degrees. Okay, we got that set. And now we're going to want to intercept this final approach course at 45 degrees. So if we add 45 degrees to this 035 heading, we'll start our turn when the needle is at 080 degrees. Okay, it's currently at 070. And I'll also lower the pre-selector down to 5,300, so just above our MDA. And start a shallow descent, about 800 feet per minute. And pull the power back. Okay, we're at 075 degrees. And there's 080, so we'll turn right to our final approach course. Gonna aim a little bit to the right because we're overshooting a little bit to the left. So we're going to use the heading bug to push the head of the needle back to 080. And since we're now established on our final approach course, we'll go ahead and drop the flaps to 15 degrees, drop the gear.
Altitude.
Increase our descent rate a bit. Okay, our approach course is now about 0.82. About 0.81, so we can start turning back to 0.80. And you want to stay within 10 degrees left to right of this final approach course, otherwise you should go missed. And actually our missed approach point is actually flying over the NDB station. Okay, we'll go full flaps, we're at our MDA, and here you can see the runway, and we're off-centered, just like the approach plate has said. So at this point,
Autopilot.
I'll disconnect the autopilot, turn off the yaw damper, and we'll go ahead and do a circle to land on runway 27. Okay, so here we are on short final for runway 27, holding the approach a little bit high.
500. 500.
Try and get it back on the glide slope here. There we go. Okay, be ready with the rudder for that right crosswind. There we go. Get the speed brake up. And we can start braking. There we go. So we'll bring the flaps up, speed brake up, turn off the anti-ice, and we can also turn off our landing light. And we'll exit the runway here, and there we go. An NDB approach using the working title CJ4.